Dr. Alicja Jagielska-Burduk, who is editor-in-chief of the Santander Art and Cultural Review. And so she is the co-organizer of this event together with Andrei. And since 2014, she has been nominated as mediator at UNESCO Intergovernmental Committee for promoting the return of cultural property to its countries of origin or its restitution in case of illicit appropriation. And she will provide us with some interesting observation on the possible impacts of this new directive on the art market. Please, Alicia, you have the floor.
As I didn't reach my panel, I will try to shorten my speech. The directive has been an excellent opportunity for member states to review their legal regulations. Actually, it has been a stimulus to revolutionize them. To answer the question if such a revolution can eat its own children, we have to review the art market and the cultural heritage protection before the implementation. Then we should consider the behavior power of the directive and its influence on the art market and actors operating on it. Viewing the art market from the perspective of heritage protection, we can reach the following conclusions. First, the regulations of the art market are derivative of heritage protection provisions. The legislator only appears to see this relationship and often treats art market as a threat to cultural heritage. This negative attitude to the market dominates as a rule. All new national regulations, as well directive, run in the explanatory memoranda a claim about curing the market by heritage protection. The second claim is to improve the condition for the art market by stronger confidence and, very famous word, transparency. For many years, the legislator hasn't been interested in the art market at all, or only incidentally. For example, in cases of theft, illegal excavations, which all attracted the attention of the media. The activity was not a result of judicial decisions, court verdicts, or suggestions raised by scholars in their publications. That is why we can speak of a so-called ad hoc actions by legislator on the art market. The legislator doesn't know the art market well and its mechanisms. That is why he cannot identify the relevant actors, I mean sellers, buyers, and dealers. And he wants to treat them all in a uniform fashion, which is wrong. What is wrong? Furthermore, it may be argued that the legislator holds a rather wrong opinion of the market that is divided just into two parts, legal and illegal, and he doesn't see the gray part. That is practically, there is practically in no country that has a comprehensive monitoring of the art market. So we cannot speak about a real knowledge of the impact of legislation changes on the market. However, in explanatory reports, many countries states that the impact will be good or even that it does not concern the market. The legislator justifies its intervention in the art market with EU or international recommendations. He is aware that such an intervention may give rise to controversies and won't be accepted. Such justification is convenient for policymakers and builds primacy of cultural heritage over the rights of the owner and, in fact, the art market. This sentence about EU rules permitting restrictions on free trade in cultural treasures, it's becoming like a mantra of legislators. We do have to note such elements of the art market. The well-being of the art market, or rather its main actors, I mean dealers, who try hard to keep the buyers and sellers on the distance and to keep the situation of information asymmetry. Dealers, contrary to the popular belief, represent mostly the interest of the sellers and not buyers. What is more, the art market shows a peculiar time lag in reacting to any legislative action affecting it. We can say it's like a go-slow strike. The discharging of new duties, like in Poland, this register books, should be demanded more by clients, not by the state and its agencies. So far, experience has shown that the pressure made by the community is fairly more important than controls run by state agencies. The lack of transparency on the art market is perceived as a standard risk. This is caused by the following three mechanisms concerning organizational culture. First is culture of ignorance of buyers or their lack of interest in the provenance of the object. Buyers very often take it for granted that proper checks have been run by the dealer, whom the buyer trusts, otherwise he wouldn't buy from him. In practice, dealer cannot serve equally the buyer and the seller, and the elimination of the conflict, even through legislation, is not entirely possible, but this due diligence obligation is very important, like in German legislation, it should be emphasized here. The next is a culture of self-defense on the part of dealers. They do not believe that the directive may effectively cleanse the market of pathologies. Other market players have also little belief in the effective cooperation with law enforcement agencies. And last, but not least, is a culture of secrecy, or we can say unavailability of information about the market, its turnover, sellers, buyers, art objects, and of course the actual prices. All this contributes to the ineffectiveness of which all benefit. The three cultures show the risk of the due diligence and its exercise. Art market is by no means uniform. Its development has reached different stages in various countries. For instance, the level of participation of lawyers varies from country to country. On major markets, like in the United Kingdom, they help to prevent problems occurring in market forces. In Poland, for example, their participation in transactions is practically very rare. Therefore, attention needs to be paid to the unique features of an individual art market without copying legal solutions. The view of the art market poses a question as the directive is really a compromise between restrictiveness or the freedom of the art market. Derogating the annex, the decision on identifying cultural treasures was left to the individual member states. The states will always aim at expanding the list of national treasures, believing that is the only right way. This is done not only through the universal introduction of a duty to notify some transactions, commercial transactions, I mean the restrictions that are directed at the sellers. Such measures will always end in imposing more restrictions on transactions involving cultural objects and in enlarging in the future the category of the res extra commercium. The restitution directive will definitely bring substantial changes to the national heritage protection law, and what is even more important, it will set a specific level of the art market control. Next slide. Implementing the directive, the member states look one to another for inspiration, encouragement, and very often copy the solutions. An example is Poland introducing register books for art objects valued above 4,000 zlotys. It's a copy of Italian and Spanish solution. Such copying is not a good, although it can be easily explained by policymakers to the voters. The slogan that such solutions can be found elsewhere in Europe seems to be a very popular agreement. What is next? Policy makers' culture of concealment affects actually two areas. First, that actually nearly no legislator shows what are the costs of the changes to the art market. I mean the duty of having these register books, checks run by law enforcement agencies, and new entities to monitor the market. Second, it is concealed from the public how strongly the introduction of the construct of national treasures will affect private property. This also carries lots of costs. We can divide the effects of the directive into immediate and future effects. First are immediate effects, like the implementation of the directive show that countries in which there were no statutory regulations permitting a closer supervision of the market will introduce regulations imposing on dealers to keep a duty to keep register books. Their purpose is to give law enforcement agencies some sphere to make pressure on sellers. Supranational and national cooperation of law enforcement agencies and the legislators understanding the need to bear the cost of improving crime prosecution on the market. Maintaining the principle of protecting, now I would like to say something about maintaining the principle of extraordinary restrictions of the freedom transactions. In our opinion, the principle of protecting national treasures will prevail. The definition of such objects will be as broad as possible, even if their actual protection will be ineffective. The fear of lack of effectiveness will lead to search for more and more sophisticated systems of heritage, and finally, it will rebound on the art market. As a future effect, As a future effect, we will see the polarization of cultural objects. At present, the category of national treasures is very broadly defined by all countries and covers both private and public property. With time, we think that national treasures will be further polarized, as the state will want to gather them in its hands. The criterion of value will fuse with the criterion of ownership. However, the category of res extra commercium cannot be extended to private property. That is why we will observe some kind of a hybrid constructions with strong restrictions directed on private owners. The directive and its implementation is an attempt to find an ad hoc legal solution to the effectiveness of international investigations and to increase the effectiveness of restitution. Even if it fails, it will be amended soon, as it already happened. However, the directive will always affect the art market, as it contradicts the opinion that the circulation of art is the best and natural tool to achieve its preservation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alicia.